You ever wake up one morning and realize you've been running in the wrong direction for half your life? I mean, really realize it. Not the cute motivational kind of realization people post online. I'm talking about that quiet moment when your chest feels heavy and a strange thought creeps in. What if all these years, all this effort, all this stress was chasing something that was never going to make you happy? I'm 77 years old. That means I've had about 28,000 mornings to think about life. And if there's one thing I wish someone had told me when I was younger, it's this. Most of the pain people experience in life isn't caused by bad luck. It's caused by the lies we believe about what life is supposed to be. And those lies cost time. Not a few months, not a few years, decades, 30 years, sometimes more. When I was young, I thought life worked like a ladder. You climb it step by step and eventually you reach the top where happiness is waiting. First you struggle through school, then you chase a career, then you work like a machine so you can buy a bigger house, a better car, nicer things. Everyone around you is doing the same thing, so it feels normal. But nobody stops to ask a very dangerous question. What if the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall? I learned that lesson the hard way. In my 30s, I was working 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. I told myself I was doing it for my future family, for security, for respect. I believed if I just pushed harder for a few more years, everything would fall into place. But here's the strange part. The harder I worked, the emptier life started to feel. Have you ever noticed that? You finally reach a goal you thought would change everything, and for about 3 days it feels amazing, maybe a week. Then something strange happens. Your mind quietly moves the finish line again. Now you need the bigger promotion, the better house, the next achievement, and suddenly you're running again. It's like trying to drink salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. Most people never notice this trap. They just keep running faster. But life has a way of forcing clarity on you when you least expect it. For me, it happened on a random Tuesday afternoon when I was 47. Nothing dramatic happened. No accident. No disaster. Just a quiet moment in my office when I realized something terrifying. I had built a life that looked successful from the outside but felt completely empty on the inside. The promotions were there. The money was there. The house was bigger than anything my parents ever owned. And yet, something felt wrong. I remember sitting there staring at the wall thinking, is this it? Not in a dramatic way. Just honestly asking. Because if this was the reward for 25 years of stress, then something in the system was broken. And that moment began a very slow, very uncomfortable discovery. Most of the rules we follow in life were written by people who were just as confused as we are. Think about it. Somewhere along the way, society quietly agreed that success means being busy, exhausted, and constantly chasing more. But no one ever stopped to ask whether the people at the top of that system are actually happy. You can see it everywhere. People with big houses who barely speak to their families. People with impressive careers who feel completely lost inside. People surrounded by friends who secretly feel alone. And the scary part is, when you're young, you think that's just how life works. You assume the stress will eventually pay off. But here's the uncomfortable truth I learned after 77 years of living. The things people sacrifice their lives for are often the exact things that steal their peace. Let me tell you about a man I knew years ago. He was brilliant, hard-working, the kind of person everyone respected. By the time he was 50, he had more money than most people could ever dream of. But one evening we were sitting together after a long day, and he said something I'll never forget. He looked at his phone, sighed, and said, I spent 40 years building a life I don't have time to live. Think about that for a second. 40 years building a life you don't have time to enjoy. That sentence hit me harder than any motivational speech ever could, because I realized something frightening. We assume time is endless when we're young, but it isn't. Life isn't measured in years. It's measured in moments you're actually present for. And most people are mentally somewhere else, thinking about the next problem, the next bill, the next goal, the next crisis. They rush through life like someone trying to catch a train that never arrives, and one day they wake up, older, tired, wondering where everything went. Now don't misunderstand me. Work matters, responsibility matters, building a stable life matters, but there's a huge difference between building a life and postponing living. That's a mistake millions of people make without realizing it. They keep telling themselves, "I'll relax when things calm down. I'll spend more time with my family after this project. I'll take care of my health next year. I'll enjoy life once I finally succeed." But life doesn't work like that. The future has a strange habit of arriving faster than you expect. One day you're 30 and full of energy. Then suddenly you're 40, wondering how the decade disappeared. Then 50 arrives, and something shifts. Your body reminds you it's not indestructible anymore, and if you're lucky enough to reach 70 like I did, you look back and realize something very simple. The moments that mattered most were never the ones you were chasing. They were the small ones you almost missed. The quiet dinners, the ordinary conversations, the walks with people you love, the laughter that wasn't planned, the peaceful mornings where nothing urgent was happening. Those are the real treasures. But here's the strange twist. Most people treat those moments like background noise. They're too busy chasing something else to notice. Let me give you a practical piece of advice that would have saved me years of unnecessary stress. Every once in a while, pause and ask yourself a brutally honest question. If my life continues exactly like this for the next 10 years, will I be proud of it? Not the version you imagine in your head, the real one. The schedule you actually live. The habits you repeat every day, the relationships you're nurturing or ignoring. That question can wake you up faster than any alarm clock, because the truth is simple. Your life is not shaped by the goals you talk about. It's shaped by the things you do repeatedly. If your days are filled with stress, distraction, and exhaustion, your life will eventually reflect that. But if your days include moments of connection, curiosity, and presence, those moments quietly compound over time, and suddenly life feels different. Now here's another lesson that took me decades to understand. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. When you're young, you try to please everyone. You try to fit in, impress people, avoid conflict, but eventually you realize something important. Some people bring energy into your life, others quietly drain it. The tricky part is, the draining ones don't always look obvious. Sometimes they're the people who constantly complain. Sometimes they're the ones who only appear when they need something. Sometimes they're the voices that make you doubt yourself. And if you're not careful, you spend years carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry. Learning to create healthy distance from negativity is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, just out of self-respect. Life becomes lighter when you stop fighting battles that were never necessary. Another thing I wish I understood earlier is how fragile health really is. When you're young, your body forgives almost everything. Late nights, stress, bad food, no sleep. You assume it will always bounce back. But the body keeps a quiet record. Years of neglect eventually collect interest. And suddenly people who were once full of energy start dealing with problems they never imagined. Heart issues, constant fatigue, chronic pain. I've watched friends lose decades of quality life simply because they ignored their health when it mattered most. So here's something practical. Move your body every day. Not because you're chasing some perfect appearance, but because movement keeps life flowing inside you. Walk more, stretch, breathe deeply. Eat food that actually nourishes you. Sleep like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. These things sound simple, almost boring, but the boring habits are the ones that quietly protect your future. And finally, there is one lesson that took me 70 years to truly accept. You cannot control everything that happens in life. You can do everything right and still face unexpected loss, unexpected failure, unexpected change. That used to terrify me. I wanted certainty, stability, guarantees. But life doesn't offer guarantees. What it offers is something different. Moments, experiences, people who cross your path for reasons you may not understand until years later. When you stop trying to control every outcome, something interesting happens. You begin to experience life instead of constantly resisting it. Problems still appear, but they stop feeling like the end of the world. They become chapters, temporary storms that pass, and suddenly the pressure lifts. You realize you don't need a perfect life to have a meaningful one. You just need awareness. Awareness of what truly matters. Awareness of how quickly time moves. Awareness that peace rarely comes from achieving more, but often from needing less. If someone had told me all of this when I was young, I probably wouldn't have believed them. Youth has a funny relationship with advice. We assume wisdom is outdated until life quietly proves otherwise. But if you're hearing these words right now, maybe there's a reason. Maybe you're standing at a crossroads you haven't fully recognized yet. Maybe you're chasing something that's slowly draining you. Maybe you're postponing joy for a future that keeps moving further away. Or maybe everything in your life looks successful, but something inside feels strangely empty. If that's the case, here's the good news. You don't need to wait 30 years to change direction. Small shifts today can completely transform the road ahead. Spend more time with people who make you feel alive. Protect your health like it's your most valuable asset. Stop measuring your worth by how exhausted you are. Slow down enough to notice the life that's already happening around you. Because one day, if you're fortunate enough to reach 77, you'll look back and realize something beautiful. Life was never meant to be a race you win. It was meant to be a journey you actually experience before the road quietly runs out.